Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a file that sits right at the intersection of, well, parenting, education, and some pretty hard physiology.
It's a big one.
It is. We are looking at that critical, chaotic, and just wonderful window of early childhood, specifically ages 3 to 6, and we are asking a question that seems simple on the surface, but is actually a logistical nightmare for anyone raising or teaching kids.
How much is enough?
How much exercise is actually enough?
It's the classic question. We all know movement is good. We know sitting still is, generally bad, especially for developing bodies. But the nuance and where the science usually gets fuzzy is in the dosage.
Exactly. We are looking for the Goldilocks zone. And we aren't just talking about go play outside. We are talking about structured physical intervention. To find the answer, we are digging into a really rigorous piece of research.
It's titled, Is Higher Frequency Always Better? The dose-response relationship between structured physical activity frequency and physical fitness improvement in preschool children.
A bit of a mouthful, but it asks exactly the right question, doesn't it?
It really does.
It comes to us from the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, published just recently in March 2026. The authors are Fang, Xing, Zhao, and Hua from Beijing Sport University.
And they're essentially trying to fix a glitch in the current guidelines.
A glitch? How so?
Well, if you look at the WHO guidelines or most national health standards, they focus on volume. They say kids need 180 minutes of activity a day, but they rarely tell you how to structure that.
Right. Do you do it every day? Can you cram it all into the weekend? Is there a point where doing more just stops working?
That is the gap this study aims to fill. It's the dose-response relationship.
Like in pharmacology, we know that 200 milligrams of ibuprofen helps a headache, but, 2,000 milligrams might shut down your liver.
Precisely. This study asks, does exercise work the same way for a 4-year-old? And to figure that out, you need a very, very controlled environment. You can't just survey parents about what their kids did at the park.
No, you need a lab setting, but in the real world. So let's get into how they set this up, because the methodology here is quite specific. They took 63 preschool children in Shenzhen, China, ages 3 to 6. Now, looking at the inclusion criteria, there was one detail that just jumped out at me as completely essential for the data quality.
I think I know what you're talking about, the blank slate requirement.
Right. These kids were not mini Olympians.
That is so crucial. None of these children were previously enrolled in any structured sports programs.
Why is that so important?
Well, if you include a child who's been doing gymnastics 3 times a week since they were 2, their baseline neuromuscular development is totally different.
It would contaminate the data.
It would completely contaminate the data. They needed children who were effectively starting from 0 regarding organized training.
Okay, so we have 63 blank slate kids. They divide them into 4 groups based strictly on frequency, how many times they show up to class. Let's quickly define these so we know who we're tracking.
Sure. So first, you have the low-frequency group, or Group L. They attended 1 session or fewer per week, basically intermittent.
Then Group M, which is moderate frequency.
Yep, strictly 1 to 2 sessions. Then you get moderate to high, or Group MH, doing 2 to 3 sessions.
And finally, the really keen ones, the high-frequency group, Group H, hitting 3 or more sessions every single week.
And this whole intervention ran for 12 weeks.
That's a long time for a preschooler. That's a huge chunk of their developmental life.
It really is.
Now, before we get to the results, I want to clarify what they were actually doing, because structured physical activity sounds very serious.
It does, yeah.
Were they running laps? Lifting tiny weights?
No, and that's important. This wasn't military boot camp. It was designed around functional movement skills. But it was highly standardized. Every single session, no matter which group you were in, was exactly 60 minutes long.
And built on the same architecture.
Identical architecture. It starts with a 15-minute warm-up. This is mostly running and jumping games. The goal here isn't just to warm up the muscles, it's to wake up the central nervous system.
Get the neurons firing.
Exactly. Then they move into the meat of the hour 40 minutes of basic skill practice, a circuit format.
Okay, so what's in the circuit?
Things like crawling, throwing, kicking, hitting, dodging. They use balance beams and what they called S-shaped running courses for agility.
And I just want to be crystal clear for you listening. This wasn't free play. It wasn't, here's a ball, go have fun.
No, not at all. Free play is great, but it's hard to measure intensity. This was instructor-led. The circuit stations were fixed, not randomized.
So every child faced the exact same physical load per session?
Yes. The only variable changing was the frequency of the exposure. That's it.
Okay, so we have the setup, we have the groups. Let's get into the findings. Because I think for a lot of parents, myself included, there's this guilt, right? That if we only get our kid to swimming lessons once a week, we aren't doing enough. But then we hope that maybe, just maybe, once is better than nothing.
Well, we have to look at the data honestly here. And the data for that low-frequency group, that once-a-week crew, is a bit as a reality check.
Uh-oh. Break it down for us.
In terms of physiological adaptation,
Yeah.
getting faster, stronger, more coordinated, the low-frequency group showed almost no significant improvement compared to their baseline scores. After 12 weeks,
Wait, nothing. 12 weeks of running around for an hour, and statistically, they didn't change.
statistically, they were stagnant. And even the moderate group, the ones doing maybe 1 or 2 sessions, they struggled to show consistent gains across all the metrics.
Why is that? I mean, surely burning calories counts for something.
It counts for energy expenditure in that specific moment, sure. If you run, you burn sugar. But we are looking for adaptation. We're looking for the body saying, oh, this is hard. I need to build new tissue or new neural pathways to handle this next time.
And once a week just isn't enough to trigger that message.
It's a concept called reversion to baseline. Think of it like learning a foreign language. If you study French for 1 intense hour on Monday, and then you don't think about French again until the next Monday, what happens?
You spend the first half hour just remembering what bonjour means.
Exactly. You spend the session relearning what you forgot, rather than building on what you retained. The body works the same way.
So the adaptations just fade away.
They do. The neuromuscular system needs repetition to solidify that signal path from the brain to the muscle. If the interval between sessions is too long, like 7 days, you just revert.
You're essentially starting from scratch every single week.
Precisely. You are treading water, not swimming forward.
So, okay, we've established that once a week is a bust for actual fitness improvement. Where was the turning point? What is the magic number where the body actually starts to keep those gains?
The study identified a very, very clear threshold. The data shifts dramatically when you hit 2 sessions per week.
2 sessions, that's the number.
At least 2. The moderate to high group, so that 2 to 3 times a week window, they showed significant, statistically measurable improvements across the board.
And what specifically got better? Are we talking about strength, agility?
Pretty much everything. They tested walking on a balance beam, which measures proprioception and core stability. They tested the 10-meter shuttle run.
Pure agility and speed.
They tested tennis ball throwing, which is complex upper limb coordination, and continuous jumping. The kids hitting that 2+ frequency improved in all of them.
So if I'm a parent, that's my baseline. If I want my kid to actually get athletic benefits from an activity, I need to commit to twice a week.
Correct. That frequency provides enough stimuli to trigger what we call neuromuscular adaptation.
Okay, let's pause on that term. Neuromuscular adaptation. I feel like we often think about muscles getting bigger, but in 3-year-olds, they aren't exactly putting on mass, right?
Right. You aren't seeing hypertrophy. No giant biceps on a 4-year-old. At this age, the primary gains are neural. Think of the nerve pathways from the brain to the muscles like a hiking trail in a dense forest.
Okay, I'm with you.
If you walk that trail once a month, the weeds go back. It's hard to navigate. But if you walk it 2 or 3 times a week, the path gets packed down. It becomes clear. It becomes fast.
And the signal gets through quicker.
The brain says jump, and the signal shoots down that clear path, and the muscles fire instantly and in sync. That is coordination. That is agility.
That's a fantastic visual. So frequency clears the path.
Exactly.
Now, this brings us to what was, for me, the most surprising part of the whole study, because logic would dictate that if twice a week clears the path, doing it 5 times a week must turn it into a superhighway.
If a little is good, more must be better. The modern ethos.
Right. So did the high-frequency group, the kids going 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week, did they just crush the other groups?
They did not.
Seriously.
This is the phenomenon of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
When the researchers compared the moderate to high group, the 2 to 3 timers, against the high group, the 3+ timers, there was no significant difference in their improvement at the end.
So the kids grinding it out every single day didn't get any fitter than the kids going every few days.
They were fit for sure, but they hit a ceiling. The rate of improvement just plateaued.
Why? I feel like in adult fitness, usually volume equals gains. If I run every day, I'll be a better runner than if I run twice a week. Why doesn't that apply to preschoolers?
Several reasons, and they are really distinct to early childhood physiology and psychology. The first one is recovery.
But kids have endless energy. I've seen them run for hours.
They have metabolic energy, that's true. They don't get lactic acid build up the way we do. But We're talking about neuromuscular recovery. That nervous system we just talked about, it's immature, it is highly plastic, but it is also easily overwhelmed.
So if you hammer those pathways too often,
The quality of the movement starts to degrade. They get sloppy.
and if you practice sloppy movement, you learn sloppy movement.
You got it. But there's another factor the authors brought up that I found fascinating: sleep latency.
Sleep latency. That's how long it takes you to fall asleep once you're in bed, right?
Correct.
Oh.
There is surrounding research suggesting that excessive high-intensity activity frequency can actually keep the system in a state of hyperarousal,
Oh, they get overtired.
wired and tired.
Mhm.
If cortisol and adrenaline are spiking every single day from structured, intense activity, it interferes with the ability to settle down. And since adaptation, the actual building of the fitness happens during sleep, if you ruin the sleep, you undercut the progress.
That's a huge point. So you're doing the work in the gym, but because you're doing too much, we're preventing the body from cashing the check during the night.
Exactly. But I'd argue the even bigger factor here is psychological. We have to remember, these are 4-year-olds. They have the attention span of, well,
A 4-year-old.
the boredom factor.
The boredom factor. The study used a standardized circuit. Imagine asking a child to do the exact same crawling, throwing, and cone running drill 5 days a week, every week, for 3 months.
They would revolt or just completely zone out.
They lose novelty. Mental fatigue sets in. And in exercise science, engagement matters. If a child isn't engaged, if they aren't trying to balance on the beam because they're bored of the beam, the training stimulus just plummets.
So you might be physically there for the 5th session, but you aren't getting a 5th session's worth of effort out of them.
Not even close.
So the Goldilocks zone really is that 2 to 3 times per week window, enough to build the path, but not so much that you burn out the traveler. Precisely. It maximizes physiological adaptation while maintaining psychological interest.
Okay, we have to address the outliers, though, because science is rarely a perfect straight line. There were 2 tests that didn't fit this pattern at all. Let's talk about the standing long jump first.
Ah, yes. The jump. In this test, every group improved significantly.
Even the low-frequency group, the once-a-weekers.
Even them.
But that contradicts everything we just said about reversion to baseline.
Yeah.
So what happened there? Was the jumping drill just magical?
It wasn't magic. It was likely a mix of volume and culture. First, the warm-up protocol for all groups included frog jumps, bunny hops, vertical jumps. So even in one session, the sheer volume of jumping repetitions was very high.
So they got a lot of reps in quickly.
Yes, but the researchers suspect a confounding variable: the parents.
A look what I can do factor.
Exactly. Jumping is a very visible, celebratory skill. Show me how far you can jump is something parents ask toddlers to do constantly. It's easy to practice in the living room.
That is so true. I ask my niece to jump off stuff all the time. I never ask her to run a shuttle sprint in the hallway.
Right. You're not asking her to demonstrate her agility on a balance beam in the kitchen. So the researchers suspect there was a lot of homework happening, unknowingly.
So the low-frequency group probably wasn't actually low frequency when it came to just jumping.
Very likely not.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have the sit and reach test. This measures flexibility.
And in this case, no group improved significantly. Not the low group, not even the high-frequency group doing 3+ sessions.
Nobody got more flexible. That seems odd for little kids who are usually made of rubber.
It comes down to the principle of specificity.
You get what you train for.
Exactly. The 60-minute sessions were designed for motor skills, dynamic movement, running, coordination. Static stretching was limited to just the 5-minute cooldown at the end.
5 minutes isn't much, and usually with kids, cool down means wiggle around on the floor for a bit.
It's barely anything. To actually improve your range of motion, you need dedicated, high-volume static stretching. The study proves you don't get flexibility for free just by running around.
So it wasn't a failure of the kids, it was just a mismatch of the training goal versus the test.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So if we zoom out, what does this all mean for you listening? Let's say I'm a parent organizing my kid's schedule, or I'm an educator running a preschool program. What are the actionable takeaways?
Well, the headline is clear. The goal should be at least 2 high-quality structured sessions per week. If you are relying on 1 soccer practice a week to build your child's physical literacy, it is likely insufficient to drive real physiological change.
You're maintaining, not building.
You're just maintaining. And on the flip side, we need to caution against that tiger parent mentality of packing the schedule every single day.
Because more isn't better here.
Right. Simply adding a fourth or fifth day of the same structured activity is inefficient. It yields diminishing returns, and you introduce the risk of burnout and sleep disruption.
But what if a kid wants to be active every day? Are we saying we should stop them?
No, not at all. But the key word is variety. If they do the obstacle course on Monday and Wednesday, do swimming on Tuesday, just do free play at the park on Thursday.
So if you exceed 3 days, the activities have to be different.
They must be varied to maintain novelty. It's about building a broad base of movement, not specializing in circuit training at age 4.
And this all links back to that concept you mentioned, motor competence.
Yes, fundamental movement skills,
Yeah.
or FMS. There's a mechanism here called the competence motivation loop.
How does that work?
Frequent practice improves the skill, that neural efficiency we talked about. When a child gets better at the skill, say, they can run without tripping or throw a ball accurately, they enjoy it more.
And because they enjoy it.
They work harder and play longer. Because they work harder, they get fitter. It's a positive feedback loop.
Success breeds motivation.
Exactly. And the low-frequency approach fails to even start the engine on that loop
Yeah.
because the child never gets competent enough to feel that success.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. It's not just about muscles, it's about confidence.
It really is.
So to wrap this up, we started with a mission to find the dose response for preschoolers, and we found it.
We did. A frequency of 2 to 3 times per week is the optimal strategy. Below 2 is fighting a losing battle against reversion. Above 3, you hit a plateau of diminishing returns.
It's all about balance. Structuring activity to ensure physiological adaptation without causing psychological burnout. It is amazing how much science goes into something that looks like child's play.
We often overlook early childhood as just playtime, but these are the foundational years for the nervous system. Getting the dosage right sets the trajectory for a lifetime of health.
If you want to see the charts, and the visual difference between the groups on the shuttle run is pretty stark, I highly encourage you to read the full article by Ren, Zhao, and Kwa in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine.
The statistical breakdown is definitely worth a read for the data nerds out there.
Definitely. Now, before we go, here is a thought to chew on. We talked about how the high-frequency group didn't improve more, partly because of boredom and repetition. It makes you wonder, does the same logic apply to us adults?
How so?
Well, how many of us are going to the gym 5 times a week, doing the exact same 5x5 lifting routine, or running the exact same 5K route, and wondering why we've plateaued?
Good point.
We assume we just need to push harder, but maybe we are just boring our own nervous systems. Maybe we need to treat our bodies a little more like a preschooler's. Give it rest, give it variety, or it's just going to take a nap on us.
A very valid question. Novelty isn't just for kids. Adaptation requires a new stimulus, regardless of age.
Something to think about the next time you're dreading leg day. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Make sure you are following the feed and have those notifications turned on so you don't miss the next one. We'll see you.